Used to bully my disabled brother for years. I'm not here to ask for sympathy or forgiveness because I know I don't deserve either. I wrote this because I need to let it out, to confront what I did, and maybe to help someone else avoid the same mistakes. I've been hiding this guilt for so long that it's like a boulder on my chest. So here it is. I have an older brother. He's 19, and I'm 17. He's been disabled since birth, meaning he has extremely limited mobility in his arms, can't walk at all, and needs to be in a wheelchair anytime he's out of bed. He also has speech issues that make it tough to understand him sometimes. The cause is some neuromuscular condition. I'm not going into specifics, but suffice it to say he needs help with almost everything. Bathing, dressing, using the bathroom, eating, you name it. If you had met us years ago, you'd see two kids trying to bond despite a big difference in ability. We used to have a great relationship. Or maybe that's just how I saw it back then. My parents always said I was a sweet kid who loved his big brother, but that changed around the time I turned 11. That's when my life took a turn, and I started resenting all the attention and care he required. My parents revolved their lives around him, his doctor appointments, his therapies, his needs. Meanwhile, I felt like the afterthought. Or maybe I was just an immature brat who didn't grasp the reality that he literally couldn't do these things for himself. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and decided to hate my brother. It was gradual. My parents were stressed, tired, worried about his health. Sometimes they'd bicker about finances, because his care wasn't cheap, or about how to coordinate schedules. All that stress seeped into me. I noticed how exhausted they were, how every family decision had to factor in my brother's limitations, how we couldn't do normal family outings without complicated plans. I started seeing him less as my older brother, and more as the reason for all that stress. Around 11 or 12, my resentment grew stronger, especially once my brother went through a phase where he was moody and frustrated. He sometimes snapped at my parents or got angry about not being able to do what other kids did. Looking back, it was obviously heartbreak and frustration on his part. But to 12-year-old me, it felt like he was being mean for no reason. My logic went something like, he's already hogging all the attention. Why does he have to be rude, too? That was my first big mistake, thinking I had a right to judge him, even though I never lived in his shoes. By the time I hit my early teens, I started ignoring him. If he tried talking to me, I'd pretend not to hear. I'd go to my room or out with friends, anything to escape having to help him, or even be around him. He noticed, of course, and it hurt him. Sometimes he'd call out, "Bro, let's hang out." But I'd act busy or roll my eyes. If we were at the dinner table and he was describing his day, I'd chime in with stories of my own fun times at school, just to rub it in ill. I'd brag about playing sports or going to the mall, things he couldn't do easily, hoping it would sting. Yes, it was petty. Yes, I was a jerk. He'd get sad, or sometimes a bit annoyed, and I relished that moment, like I'd gotten payback for all the trouble he caused. My parents were so busy they probably didn't notice the shift in our dynamic. They might have chalked it up to typical teenage aloofness. The truth is, I was actively hurting him, emotionally, little by little. He never tattled, never told them I was being cruel. He just tried harder to get my attention or beg for my company, which only fueled my resentment more. It escalated when I was about 14 or 15. I got used to ignoring him so that no longer satisfied whatever bitterness I had. I started doing small, mean-spirited things, turning off the Wi-Fi or unplugging the TV whenever I left the house, so he'd be stuck in his wheelchair with no entertainment. It's not like he could get up and fix it. Deleting his favorite shows from the DVR. He loved certain cartoons or movies, and I'd systematically erase them. I told myself it was harmless, but it was basically sabotage. Mocking his speech or giving him a disgusted face whenever I had to help him with something like feeding or changing. If my mom asked me to do it, I'd sigh loudly and act repulsed. He'd end up apologizing for existing, basically, which I accepted with silent scorn, pushing items just out of his reach on counters or tables. If he tried to grab them with his limited arm movement, he couldn't. Then I'd pretend not to see him struggling. It was downright bullying. I see it now, clear as day. But at the time I told myself he deserved it. He was ruining my life. Ruining my parents' life. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the misery I imagined he was inflicting on me. Never mind that I was healthy, had friends, freedom, and my brother was the one stuck in a wheelchair. All the while, he rarely fought back. He never told my parents. He might cry sometimes or beg me to stop, but he never blew my cover. I suspect he wanted me to like him so badly that he feared making me even angrier. That docile acceptance fueled my cruelty more. I had all the power. He had none. The last straw came about 3 weeks before I wrote my original post. My brother was talking non-stop, wanting me to engage. I was annoyed and wanted peace, so I wheeled him outside to our backyard, telling him we'd hang out there. Then I stuck him under a patio umbrella and went inside. I ended up napping on the couch for 3 hours, forgetting he was out there, in the heat, with no way to move back inside or even call for help effectively. When I finally woke up and went to retrieve him, I saw him in tears. He was humiliated, maybe worried I'd never return. That image of him, watery-eyed and silent, something broke inside me. Unlike my usual reaction, to ignore or belittle, I felt a jolt of shame and horror. It struck me how truly helpless he was, how monstrous I'd become to do that to my own brother. That day, I stopped bullying him, not because I'd magically turned into a saint, but because I was so rattled by the expression on his face, he wouldn't even look at me. And it dawned on me I might have crossed a line too far for redemption. A week or so after that, my brother tried to talk to me again. He told me he was glad I was his brother and friend. The word friend ripped my guts out. I realized I'd never been a friend. I'd been an abuser. He saw me as some shining figure anyway. I couldn't even respond. I went to my room and cried like a little kid. The guilt swelled until it was unbearable. That's when I decided I had to apologize. Properly, I sat down to write a letter, something I could read to him. Part of me felt I owed him that direct, heartfelt confession. I was too ashamed to do it off the cuff, worried I'd freeze up. So I composed pages of apology. How sorry I was for those years of cruelty, how I'd do anything to make it up, how I realized he was the brave one, not me. So the night I posted my confession, the one that got all the feedback, my brother and my mom were coming home from a specialist appointment. Once my brother settled into bed, I mustered my courage, note in hand, heart-pounding hand. I knocked on his door softly. He called out, "Yeah, come in," sounding hopeful. When I entered, he was so excited just to see me. I climbed onto his bed, kneeling beside him. I looked at my note, started to speak, but as soon as I said, "I want to say, I'm really sorry," I broke down in tears, a raw, ugly sob. The letter shook in my hands. All the guilt, regret, shame, and heartbreak spilled out. I couldn't speak. My voice was gone. My brother gently put his limited motion arms around me, hugging me as best he could. He said, "I missed you, buddy." That's it. But it crushed me in a good way, if that makes sense. I'd never felt that wave of contrition so strongly. He was hugging me and comforting me, the same brother I tormented. I cried harder than I'd ever cried, almost wailing in shame. He teared up too, though he tried to stay strong. We lay there, hugging for a long time, maybe half an hour. Hardly any words passed between us. He was just letting me cry it out. Eventually, I calmed enough to stand up. I gave him a kiss on the forehead and told him how sorry I was. He said he was so happy I was there with him. No anger, no accusations, just relief. I left the note by his bedside, telling him he could read it whenever. Then I walked out, feeling both drained and strangely hopeful. All that pressure in my heart felt eased. I realized how much of my resentment was nonsense. All that time, he just wanted my love, and I was too spiteful to give it. I vowed never to treat him badly again. I told him I'd try reading the letter again properly on another day. But for now, we had started a new chapter. I told myself, from now on, I will be there for him. Not as a caretaker forced to do chores, but as a real brother. If he wants to watch a movie, I'll watch with him. If he wants to talk about random stuff, I'll listen. It won't fix everything overnight, but it's a start. I also mentioned wanting to take him on a special trip someday. I have been working a part-time job for about a year, saving money to send my mom and him to a place he's always wanted to visit. He's big into some local tourist spot or theme park. Now I think I'd rather take him myself once I turn 18. Just the two of us. It feels right. A chance to form new memories. Another realization. I can't just be his caretaker. I have to be his sibling in a normal sense, like going to the movies, talking about everyday stuff, exchanging jokes. That's not going to be easy after I spent years ignoring him or mocking him. I know I have to earn back the trust I destroyed. Luckily for me, My brother is so kind-hearted, he seems ready to forgive instantly, but I owe him more than that. I owe him actual consistency. Now I look back on my teenage self and see a mix of immaturity, self-centeredness, and unprocessed anger. In hindsight, I should have sought therapy or told my parents that I was overwhelmed, but I bottled it up and redirected the rage toward my brother, who was innocent. If there's anyone reading this who feels the same type of resentment toward a sibling with special needs, talk to someone. Don't let it fester into cruelty like I did. I had so many messages from people in the comments of my original post, some praising me for admitting it, others calling me irredeemable. I understand both sides. A big chunk of me still says, I deserve hatred, but my brother's unconditional love and instant forgiveness show me there might be a path forward. It's only been a little while, but already I'm noticing changes. And my brother and I shared a meal the other night, just us, and I made sure to do everything with care. No sign, no disgust. I asked how his day was. He beamed the entire time. Such a small effort, and he's overjoyed. I regret not doing this from the start. Yes, it's going to take time to fix the damage I caused. I can't wave a wand and erase years of bullying, but I'm motivated. My brother is amazing for giving me this chance. My plan is, be consistent. No more turning off Wi-Fi mocking him or ignoring him. If I slip, I'll own up immediately. Spend real time. Watch movies, read books to him, talk about life, share jokes. Let him see I truly want his company. Build future experiences. Once I'm 18, I'll take him on that trip we talked about. Make it special. Just us. Therapy. I might still consider therapy to manage my guilt and any leftover resentment. Maybe my family can do group sessions, too. I'm not writing this post to pat myself on the back for turning over a new leaf. I'm writing because I want to show that even after years of cruelty, there can be a step toward redemption. If you face your guilt, and if the other person's heart is big enough to forgive. My brother's heart is huge. I'm grateful and ashamed simultaneously. That's where things stand. I used to bully my disabled brother for years. Out of envy, resentment, ignorance, immaturity, I inflicted wounds he didn't deserve. But I've begun to make amends, starting with a tear-filled apology and a vow to do better. Somehow my brother forgave me in seconds, just hugging me tight and saying he missed me. It's humbling to realize how loving he is despite everything I did. Moving forward, I know our family dynamic won't magically become perfect, but at least now I'm not adding to his burdens. I can be part of his support rather than another source of pain. It's tragic that it took so long to wake up, but I'm awake now. To anyone out there harboring anger toward a sibling with special needs or resenting them for the attention they require, please learn from my mistakes. Talk to someone, get help, or at least be aware of what you're doing. You might save yourself and your sibling a world of hurt. That's my story. I won't say I'm proud, but I am determined to change. My brother deserves the best life possible, and if I can contribute to it rather than sabotage it, that might be the best atonement I can offer. Thank you to everyone who supported me with tough love or advice. I read it all. Keep us in your thoughts as we work to rebuild our bond. My brother may be disabled, but he's still the best brother I could ask for, and I'm the one who needed to change.